Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. The Lord said to Satan, "From where have you come?" Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro the earth, and from walking up and down on it." The fallen angels account for 1/3 of the entire host of heaven. In addition, watcher angels fell from grace on Mount Hermon before the flood, when they made a pact to take on wives of the daughters of man. The pre-flood giants were powerful, numerous, and tall. The Book of Giants describes the story of the twin sons of the fallen watcher Samyaza. Oya and Haya begin having disturbing dreams and are unable to sleep. The dreams and visions are about the coming destruction of the world by a flood. The watchers seek revelation from Enoch and petition a request of mercy unto the Lord on their behalf. Enoch, in his attempt to intercede on their behalf, provides an interpretation and message from God, including twin tablets that reveal God's coming and imminent judgment on the world. When the Watchers and Giants had at last heard heaven's response, many chose to continue in their pride and arrogance, rather than turn from their evil ways, to act in defiance against the Lord. The scribe Enoch gave Haya a copy of another tablet that bore his handwriting. The writing on the tablet said, "In the name of the great and holy God, this message is sent to Samyaza and all his companions. Let it be known to you, the giants and monsters, that you will not escape the judgment for all the things you have done, and the wives you have taken, and their sons will not escape, until the heavenly angel Raphael arrives. Behold, destruction is coming by a great flood, which will destroy all living things, whatever is in the deserts and in the seas." In the modern interpretation, Satan, Diablo, and Lucifer are used in the context of a single entity. Dragon, the old serpent, the prince of this world, and the prince of the power of the air are all names used as well. While there may be a specific chief Satan like the one that is mentioned in Job 1, the original understanding of Satan was a title that could apply to multiple entities. The Hebrew word can be translated to mean the adversary or the accuser. However, in the book of Enoch 1, it describes other fallen angels. The 5 Satans are described as being separate adversaries that have taken wives of whom they chose. These were likely watcher angels that were part of the rebellion that would eventually lead to the flood. Despite their references of being the 5 Satans, each of these is described as having taught mankind evil things which were forbidden. These fallen angels were known as Yakan, Asbeel, Gadriel, Kazdai, and Penemu. The history of Nephilim can be seen in various cultures and continents throughout history. Most of these stories and historical records have been lost over time and have changed into myths and legends. The Nephilim born of fallen watchers and the daughters of man was a controversial subject during the early church history. Much of it has been buried and destroyed due to the political agenda of the church during the 4th century. Due to monks being celibate, the translation of the sons of God, or B'nai Elohim, had been changed. Finding the original Hebrew meanings behind the words was not available at that time, and the sons of God mating with human women would eventually be forgotten. Job 1 and 38 use the same Hebrew words B'nai Elohim, which undoubtedly means angel. These are the names of the holy angels who watch. Uriel, one of the holy angels, is over the world and over Tartarus. Raphael, one of the holy angels, is over the spirits of men. Raguel, one of the holy angels who takes vengeance on the world and of the luminaries. Michael, one of the holy angels to wit, is set over the best part of mankind and over chaos. Serachiel, one of the holy angels who is set over the spirits who sin in the spirit. Gabriel, one of the holy angels who is over paradise and the serpents and the cherubim. And Remiel, one of the holy angels whom God set over those who rise. Angels are masculine in their native spiritual form, and they possess roles and attributes such as warrior or guardians, and so it follows that they are male-like in their fleshly physical form. However, Zechariah 5 is the only reference of female angels in which two female beings are seen with wings like that of a stork. In the book of Matthew, it states that angels are not given in marriage in heaven, but Jesus makes no mention of angels taking on the form of flesh. Throughout antiquity, it is widely understood and believed that angels could assume fleshly bodies and pair themselves with women. This spanned from the beliefs of ancient Sumeria, Greece, Rome, where we can see common threads of various deities and gods lusting after human women and doing to them as they pleased. We also see in Hebrews that angels can assume flesh and appear and interact with mankind. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by so doing, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. And in Sodom and Gomorrah, the evil men of the city demanded that Lot bring the two holy angels out of the house so that they could forcefully have relations with them. The belief was that if you could have relations with an angel, you could also be instilled with immortal power like the Nephilim offspring. Angels are described in Daniel 10 as having brilliant ember-colored bodies, radiating eyes of light, and speech that sounded like multitudes of voices. His body was like topaz, his face was like lightning, his eyes like flaming torches, his arms and legs like the gleam of burnished bronze, and his voice like the sound of a multitude. Daniel 10:6. There is no specific number mentioned or given for the number of angels, but it is clear that there are an incredible amount of angels that God created. When I looked and heard the voice of many angels, numbering thousands upon thousands, and 10,000 times 10,000, they encircled the throne of the living creatures and the elders. Revelation 5:11. Angels are natively spiritual beings that can assume a physical form if it falls within their mission. Some angels, although awesome in size, do not manifest themselves in such a manner as to be sensible with their interactions with man. Angels are typically described as a few feet taller than man in present-day encounters. The Watcher angels were said to have been permitted only to observe mankind, but because they took on the flesh and fell into sin with the daughters of man, their judgment was severe. The angelic hierarchy is generally broken down into three separate spheres or triads, within three classifications of angels in each. The seraphim angels are considered the highest rank in the angelic hierarchy within the first triad of angels. The name means the fiery ones or the burning ones. They are described as fiery serpents that worship God around his throne. These angels are seen as instruments of purification. Isaiah 6 describes one seraph picking up a burning coal with tongs from the altar and placing it on Isaiah's tongue to purify him so that he could speak with God. The seraphim each have 6 wings. With 2 they cover their face, and with 2 they cover their feet, and with 2 they fly. Cherubim are the second class of angels in the hierarchy. Cherubim are described as having 4 faces, each including a lion, ox, eagle, and a man. Their bodies are a brilliant burning amber color, resembling that of a human, but the soles of their feet are like hooves of a calf, gleaming like polished bronze. They each have 4 wings, which are like the seraphim, in which they use to cover themselves in the direct presence of God, for if they did not, they would be consumed by the holy fire. The cherubs are described as moving like bolts of lightning, with a brilliant light all around them, and the gleaming color of burning amber. The sound of their wings is like the roar of many waters, like the voice of the Almighty, like the sound of an army. Some speculate that one of the Satans seen in the Bible was a seraphim angel due to the serpent-like characteristics that are described in the Garden of Eden. However, one of the Satans or accusers is described as being a cherub in Ezekiel 28. The Ophanim are described in Ezekiel as the thrones and chariots of God. Like the other angels in the first triad, the Ophanim are said to be living creatures that sleep not and guard the throne of glory. Ezekiel describes them moving like lightning beside the cherubs. The Ophanim, or thrones, look like wheels within wheels that gleam of beryl. The rims are high and awesome, and all 4 rims were full of the eyes all around them. Ophanim are described as being able to move swiftly like lightning in any direction. When the cherubim moved, they also moved in sync. The second sphere of angels within the hierarchy consists of the dominions, powers, and virtues. There is little biblical information on these angels, but while they are mentioned sometimes as fallen angels, there are also holy ones that did not fall. The title Archangel is sometimes used to denote a specific function or authority of angels. Therefore, we see seraphim angels like Michael or Gabriel who are called chief princes or archangels. Some angels hold positions of high rank, but at the same time carry out other tasks within lower rankings. In Judeo-Christian tradition, Michael the archangel is referred to who is like El, meaning one who is like God. Michael is viewed as the field commander of the army of God, or one of the chief princes. He is mentioned by name in the book of Daniel, the book of Jude, and the book of Revelation. In the book of Daniel, Michael appears as one of the chief princes who in Daniel's vision comes to the angel Gabriel's aid in his clash with the fallen angel Dobail, the ancient principality over Persia. But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me for 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me because I was detained there with the king of Persia. Daniel 10:13. So he said, "Do you know why I have come to you? Soon I will return to fight against the prince of Persia, and when I go, the prince of Greece will come." Daniel 10:20. The status of archangel is used to distinguish a specific high rank of leadership within the angelic army. The archangels Michael and Gabriel are mentioned in the Bible and carry out various duties that suit a specific mission that have been handed down to them from God. In the first book of Enoch, written by the holy Enoch, Raphael and Uriel are also provided different missions and tasks, like providing tours of the heavenly realm and dreadful places of severe judgment reserved for the fallen angels and Rephaim offspring. These four angels are all considered to be the archangels or chief princes. In Enoch, these four archangels stand near the crystal throne of God, each surrounding him on four sides. After the flood, Nimrod rises to power. The book of Jasher details how Nimrod received the holy garments of Adam and his rise to power as a mighty hunter and first emperor of the post-flood world. And the garments of skin which God made for Adam and Eve when they went out of the garden were given to Cush. For after their death, the garments were given to Enoch, the son of Jared. And when Enoch was taken up to God, he gave them to Methuselah, his son. And at the death of Methuselah, Noah took them and brought them on the ark, and they were with him until he went out of the ark. And in their going out, Ham stole those garments from Noah his father, and he took them and hid them from his brothers. And when Ham begat his firstborn Cush, he gave him the garments in secret, and they were with Cush many days. And Cush also concealed them from his sons and brothers. And when Cush had begotten Nimrod, he gave him those garments because of his love for him. And Nimrod grew up, and he was 20 years old when he put on those garments. And Nimrod became strong when he put on the garments. And God gave him might and strength, and he was a mighty hunter in the earth. He was also a mighty hunter in the field, and he hunted the animals, and he built altars, and he offered them up to the Lord. And Nimrod strengthened himself, and he rose up from amongst his brothers, and he fought the battles of his brothers against all their enemies round about. And the Lord delivered all the enemies of his brethren in his hands. And God prospered him from time to time in his battles, and he reigned upon the earth. And when Nimrod returned from battles, his brethren together assembled and made him king, and they placed on his head a regal crown. He began to build cities, and the first city he built for his palace was called Shinar. And all the nations and tongues heard of his fame, and they gathered themselves to him, and they bowed down to the earth, and they brought him offerings. And they were all under his power and counsel. Nimrod rose to the greatest prominence, and he was the first emperor of the world after the flood. And Nimrod and his wife Semiramis turned their hearts away from God and did evil in the world. The Celtic giants are described as having blonde hair, blue eyes, and pale white skin. These were the closest to the purebred Aryans, and they were known as the Cimmerian, Cimmerians, Barbarians, and Gauls. The average Celt was at least a foot taller than the average man, but amongst their ranks were larger giants that stood 9 to 13 feet in height. Diodorus wrote how these giants had blonde hair and were not naturally so, but they made it a practice by artificial means to increase their distinguishing color that nature had given them, and they would frequently wash their hair in lime juice. They pull it back from the forehead at the top of the head and back to the nape of the neck, with the result that their appearance is like satyrs and or Pan, since the treatment of their hair makes it so heavy and coarse that it differs in no respect from the mane of horses. These giants were also distinguished by the golden necklaces that they wore. These tight gold bands around their necks of the Celtic giants were linked back to their Anakim culture in the Promised Land. These Celtic giants descended from the Anakim and fled from Canaan after they were hunted and pushed out by the Israelites. They would eventually sail and travel westward over Europe when they would establish their Celtic nation. These giants were fearful to the sight, and the Greek historians wrote of how a whole troop of foreign soldiers was not even able to withstand a single Gaul if his wife was standing by his side. The Greeks spoke to their unusually large stature on the report of Alexander the Great's encounter with them. They were greatly feared by the Greeks, as fighting with such intensity that they would enter into a blood frenzy and charge straight into battle. As the giants began to raid northern Italy and the Etruscan city of Clusium, Rome was dispatched on request for military aid. According to Livy, a Roman ambassador slew one of the Celtic chieftains, which caused a roaring cry amongst the Celtic tribes for the destruction of Rome. Their 30,000 warriors advanced toward Rome at the command of Brennus, their leader. Rome's Legionnaires marched out to intercept the enraged Celtic horde at the battle at the river of Allia. The Romans would tremble and quiver at the sight of these barbaric behemoths. The battle would begin, but soldier after soldier would fall at the swords and spears of the Gallic invaders. The giants would beat their swords against their shields, and they would let out a thunderous war cry that filled the Romans with fear. The Celts crushed half of the Roman army that day against the river. They cut off the heads of their defeated enemies and brought them as a prize in exchange for loot. According to Herodotus, they also filled the skulls as drinking vessels for their most hated enemies. Livy also details how the Celts venerated the skulls of their enemies and would hang them as decorations on doorways or skewer them on spears or rooftops. 3 days later, when the Senoni giants arrived at the abandoned city and unguarded gates of Rome, the population had fled the city except for the fearless centurion Marcus Manlius Capitolinus and 120 courageous warriors at his side. They took up a position outside their citadel, atop the Capitol Hill. Their spears and swords were poised at the ready. The Roman armor shimmered as beams of light in the sun as the Celtic horde advanced on the base of the hill. The steep slope provided superior advantage to the few courageous Roman soldiers. The Romans would use this high ground to exploit the Celtic giants in their barrages of assaults, and they would exploit the giants as viciously as they could. As the giants raged up the hill, Marcus Manlius and his band of soldiers defended several assaults. The giants lay in piles under their swords because they dropped back down into the ranks of warriors below. Giant after giant fell at the hands of the Roman force led by the valiant Marcus Manlius. When the giants failed at a direct assault, they retreated back down to the hill to try another strategy. But the sacred geese of the Capitol Hill awoke the Roman sentries. Marcus Manlius charged to the front and responded with assaults that would send the Celts tumbling back down to their deaths. Eventually, the Cimmerian giants would burn the remainder of the city to the ground, for they were unable to defeat the 150 warriors upon the citadel of the Capitol Hill. This would still be considered the greatest defeat that Rome would suffer in all of their history, but the final battle of these titans would fall on the great military genius Gaius Marius. Throughout time, God has used angels as ministers to bring counsel, healing, and judgment. But after Jesus' death on the cross, God sent us the Holy Spirit to minister to us and dwell within us. The fallen angels and demonic spirits frequently have used this guise of holy angelic beings to sway and lead man away from God. They have sought to reveal all sorts of false religions and New Age philosophies, corrupting man and perverting the truth. Trust in Jesus alone. Repent, for your salvation is at hand.